You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account comes from the archives from the overlooked forest of the Driftless region of Iowa, where something ancient still roams. Bob Barhite, Iowa BFRO investigator, and come with us to find out what waits in the woods of northeast Iowa. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we have the privilege of talking to Mr. Bob Barhite today. He's a Midwest-based Bigfoot researcher with the BFRO, and it's a pleasure to talk to you tonight, Bob.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Sounds like this is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a good one. You know, I'm based just outside of West Des Moines, kind of western Iowa. So there's not many people to talk to out there about Iowa and Midwest Bigfoot. And we have a mutual connection. I think we both know Ontario Richardson.
Yes.
So we had a nice chat during our last expedition about your name came up a few times. So I was like, yeah, I've got to talk to Bob if I can do that eventually. So I'm glad that this happened. But Bob, you know, I'd love to ask you, what was it that got you into this whole wild Bigfoot thing to begin with?
The Legend of Boggy Creek. I saw that when it first came out with my group of friends, and we slept for 2 days with the lights on, and it was awesome. I think we were 8 years old, maybe 10, something like that. But
wow.
It was wonderful. And then we used to order books once a month through our grade school, Scholastic Reader. And they had tons of Bigfoot books and UFOs and sharks. And I still have a bunch of them too, to this day. But I was hooked. It was a lot of fun reading it. And I had the opportunity in a speech class my sophomore year in high school to interview a guy up in northeast Iowa where I grew up. He must have been pushing 80. They didn't even have running water in the house. He had a sighting back in the Depression. So it was about 45 years before I interviewed him. He had one on his farm. It was really cool to talk to this guy.
Wow, that was northeast Iowa?
Right. Yep. Up in the northeast corner.
Oh, man. Do you remember many details about that?
Absolutely. He was out clearing stumps in spring, and there was a stump on the edge of his field that he didn't recognize, and it was right where there's a bunch of woods. And he started driving his tractor over to it, and the stump got up and walked away. He said it was all brown, and he thought it was just some hobo, but it was too big.
My history's a little rusty, but this is 20s?
I think it was about 31,
okay.
32 when he saw it.
There's a lot of Bigfoot stuff up in the Northeast, as people may be aware. If you've watched the Finding Bigfoot Iowa episode, then you know about Yellow River and all that good stuff. Was this in an area where it's still known for Bigfoot to this day, or was it kind of like a one-off?
No, it's an area north of Yellow River. I think fairly close to French Creek and back in the woods in there. So yeah, it's still active.
Interesting. And then, so after you did that, did things just keep escalating? And you were like, wow, this is kind of interesting, or?
Well, then, so that was my sophomore year in high school, which would have been 79. Life kind of took over, and I saw the show Finding Bigfoot and went out to the website, and by God, they had expeditions. And I signed up for the first one in 2012. So that's the first time I really ever did anything with the BFRO.
Hold on, Bob. I'm missing a big connection here that I just realized.
Sure.
So this was 79 that you interviewed a guy about Bigfoot in northeast Iowa. And so do you mind if I ask where you're based out of at this time?
This time is over in the Driftless region, just west of Madison.
Okay, so you're in Wisconsin or Iowa?
I'm in Wisconsin. I grew up in Waukon, Iowa, not too far from where, Yellow River, French Creek, Upper Iowa River, all that.
Okay, so at this time, did you have any connections with guys that were also interviewing people in Iowa?
No. So there's this big gap of time. We had kids, moved all over the country, lived out in Oregon for a while, but the Bigfoot thing really never came up. And moved back to the Midwest in 1998. And you'd hear little flashes. My sister still lives in Waukon, so she'd mention something about Bigfoot, or like your friends still see it once in a while. And sure, okay. And I just got curious once the show hit in early 2000 teens, right around that I just started watching it, and it was a lot of fun.
The reason I brought that question up is that this at the same time period. So one of my really, like, I guess you could almost say my Roman Empire is 1970s Bigfoot Iowa history. It's wild. So at the same time that you were having that interview, there was a group of guys in Iowa called the Iowa Bigfoot Information Center. And that's a whole side thing, but it's kind of cool that you were doing your own thing. You interviewed a guy about Bigfoot in 79. At the same time, there are a bunch of other dudes that were looking into things like the Lockridge monster case, other things in Southeast Iowa, the Pella sighting, Humboldt County sightings, there's a lot of crazy stuff, as you're already probably aware of, in the 70s in Iowa. It got really crazy, but there's other episodes that you can listen to, listeners, if you haven't, where I talk about that a lot. So finding Bigfoot got you all into it. And then after that, you really got into, you got into quite a bit of Bigfoot expeditions. It looks like your resume is pretty wild. You did stuff in Iowa. I want to say you did stuff in Minnesota, or it says throughout the Midwest, in Oregon, public and private expeditions. Exactly. So you've been all over the place. Were they public expeditions out in Oregon?
Yeah, that was a public expedition in 2013 on the south side of Mount Hood.
Wow.
And that was really cool. We were following up on a report this hunter and his son had. They were out scouting. And they were hassled for about 5 hours by a couple Bigfoots.
Can you elaborate what hassled would mean?
Sure. Yeah. So they were out archery hunting, and they initially heard this nondescript mumbling, and the dad described it as like two mutes or two hard of hearing people trying to talk to each other. And he went to sleep. The son heard footsteps around the tent, and he saw this hand pressed down toward his father's face. Dad was snoring really loud, so the son thought that whatever was outside was curious. So the kid screamed, and the kid, 19-year-old kid, screamed. The hand disappeared. Dad woke up, and that's when the fun started, because they could hear things walking around, mumbling to each other. What was really interesting is when the hand was pulled away, they both described the sounds they heard is like the same sound that dad makes to his kid when the kid does something dumb. So it's like Dad Bigfoot was chastising the small one, or the youth Bigfoot, for putting his hand close to a person's face. It finally ended when they both had to go to the bathroom, and they ran out. They went outside, and the dad shined this flashlight, and probably 20 feet away, there is a good 8-foot tall Bigfoot standing there. It didn't move. All it did was turn its head and block the light with his hands. And that's it. We're going. So they threw everything in the back of their truck, and they just raced away.
Wow, that is fantastic. Did you find anything when you guys went out there?
Yeah, we found a trackway behind where the base camp was. It had gone up the side of the hill, which was kind of brushy, so you could see the indentations. And then it came back down back down to this two-track road that it had been following, it looked like. The day before the expedition, before I got there, they had a visual sighting out in a clear cut of a Sasquatch standing on two tree stumps, and it didn't notice they were driving up on it, coming around this logging road, until it was 100 feet away. It saw it and it kind of did like a Chris Farley hop, and then it just ran away. So they nicknamed that one Tommy Boy.
That's the greatest thing I've heard in 5 years.
Yeah, and yeah, it was plausible because I know the investigator pretty well, and we didn't have much go on until the last night of the expedition. Then we had eye glow, and there was something in the brush watching us because we did this big cookout thing, and it was good. At the very least, it was very scenic, and I really enjoyed meeting a whole different group of people that I'm used to hanging out with.
Absolutely. So that was the Oregon trip, and then you've had, it sounds like, multiple expeditions in the Midwest. Are there any things that stick out in your mind about things you've experienced over the years from those Midwest expeditions that you could share?
Oh man, how much time do we have?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. The very first expedition I went on in 2012, it was the Wednesday before. I normally wouldn't like people coming in early, but they allowed me to come in. Got there about 7:00 and got everything set up. And a couple hours later, 3 of us went out to examine this horse trail that they've always wanted to go on. So we walked the horse trail, and then it empties into the back of a field. We walked the edge of the field to where it drops down where a creek is. So we were just hanging out there. And within 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it was really quick, we all saw it at the same time. These 2 red glowing dots off to our left and about 10 o'clock high. So up above head height. And over the course of about 30 seconds, those 2 dots slowly looked like it went into the ground, moved left to right and then down. And they were really hyper. Yeah, that's eye glow. We saw eye glow. And we went back the next day because nobody could figure out why it disappeared into the ground. We went back, and whatever was there, you could see where grass had been pressed down. It walked down the side of a gully. And that's how it made its escape away from us. Within 20 minutes of the first time I ever went out, it's like hitting a home run the first time you're up to bat in the major leagues. There's been a lot of eye glow stuff going on. We did an expedition up in Yellow River where there was a large group, and we got split. We were split up, and I was with some seniors who were in a women's choir from Chicago. And we stopped and let them catch their breath, and they started singing and just talking. They, breaking all the rules. We want some quiet, we want to see what's going on. So they're just talking away, yap, yap, yap. And from atop a hill right across from us, these 2 white spots appear really close together, and slowly it came down the hill toward us, and the spots got further apart until you could see in the center of the 2 white spots the black pupil, or what appears to be a pupil. And then there was eye glow that came around our left and our right, so they were trying to outflank us, and that went on for about 20 minutes. It was the most impressive display I've ever seen.
So it sounds like you're saying those were eyes.
Right. It's our understanding, and I know it's kind of hard to believe, but their eyes somehow emit light.
Yeah.
I don't, it's not like it's a flashlight, although I've seen the flashlight effect before, but I don't know. We're thinking that, at least the group I'm with, that it's a way to communicate over distance without making a sound. So, one Bigfoot could be on one ridge and one on the other side, and one eyes are white and kind of blank, and like, oh, there's Fred over there. Just a way to communicate and be silent.
That is very interesting. You said that was in, I guess your first one, was that in Iowa?
Yeah, the first one was in Fayette County.
Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, very nice. I talked to a gentleman a few years ago, and he shared what was the weirdest story that I've ever heard. One of the weirdest stories I've ever heard. I've heard a few, but this was out of Backbone. in Iowa. And I'm just curious if you've ever heard of it as well. There's a gentleman who said that there was a group of them and they saw like blue lights, blue orbs, and they were looking at the orbs and they looked behind them and there was a Bigfoot that was seemed to be controlling it. Is that anything that you've ever heard of?
I haven't heard that, but man, Backbone is such a great place.
Oh, really?
We did an expedition there. Yeah, it was about this time of year. And last night of the expedition, it had been active. We had all kinds of tree knocks. We had vocalizations. It was perfect. And there's an old fish hatchery in Backbone. And about 25 of us were there because we were just kind of meeting up to see what was going to go on for the rest of the night. And then there's the loudest tree knock I've ever heard. It was like a Barry Bonds home run within 100 feet of us. And you could hear everybody just gasp. And there was an investigator standing right behind me, and he about plowed me over trying to get out of there. It was just a spectacular noise.
Wow.
So yeah, Backbone's a great place to go. I enjoy it.
I believe I've heard like a lot of people in that particular area, they'll get almost escorted out of the park or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had that. So a group of 3 guys were up in this one spot in the park and one of them did a whoop. And then off in the distance, they heard the whoop come back. That's pretty cool. A couple minutes later, it was closer, another whoop. A couple minutes after that, it was like right on top of them. And these are seasoned investigators. They just turned and like bolted out because it was spring. So they were thinking, well, maybe it's mating season. Maybe we said, hey, baby, what's up?
Right. Hopefully not. Oh my! Yeah,
not a fun way to go out, I suppose. But I was right.
So, for among people that really care about Iowa Bigfoot research, which there's not a lot of us, or at least not a lot I know, it seems like a question that always comes up is, which one do you think is more squatchy, Backbone or Yellow River?
I would say Yellow River. But personally, I haven't been over there in 4 or 5 years to check it out. We didn't exactly want to give it up for finding Bigfoot because it had been so active. But, once the show comes out, you can't really control who goes in there and what they do. But I do have a friend that occasionally goes in there, and he was there at the end of March, and it was, at least in his opinion, it was starting to get active again. There were tree structures. There were a couple of whoops. Take it as you want, but yeah, he thinks it's becoming active again.
When you've been out looking, have you ever heard any sounds that don't seem to fit the location that you're at?
Yeah, I think the best examples are just having my jam block, which is a percussion instrument for jazz, and I use that for a tree knock. Having that mimic back at me is a very specific ping, and I've never heard it outside of me hitting the jam block and having it come back at me. That's just, that's one example. We've had whoops which don't sound like, like an owl or a loon. They don't sound like a coyote or a wolf or any other critter that lives in the woods. So those are unusual. I think the really unusual ones, those when you do a knock and you get that back and then you do a couple more knocks and you get the exact number of knocks back at you.
Yep.
I've had that happen a couple of times up in Northeast Iowa as well.
Have you ever heard anything like a car door or a rusty gate?
Yes.
Really?
Thank you. Yes.
Oh boy.
I've heard that twice in Fayette County. First expedition, we went I took a guy down in where I was, where we had the eye glow, and we went back in there and we heard the car radio effect, like chattering, but there's no radio anywhere near us.
But
there's no road.
Sorry, car radio effect? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like a distant car radio, but there's nothing around. There's no car where we were standing. It would have to have been like 100-watt, like a mini Who concert going on for us to hear a car radio.
Sure.
There's no houses. There's no other people in there that we know of. It just sounded like somebody was playing music. You couldn't quite make out the words. And then we heard chattering when we were checking out the same location about 3 years later, right at the end of March. And we were walking up to the main campsite. And all along on one side, we kept hearing sound like a radio, like somebody was trying to talk on a radio to us the whole way up to where we were going. It's just, there's nobody that had a radio on. Nobody had a walkie-talkie. That's the best way to describe it, is somebody's trying to talk to you.
Oh, man.
Rusty Gate. Yeah. I've had that actually not that far from Madison in Blue Mound State Park for the Wisconsin listeners, which is a small park, but I've had quite a bit of activity in there. I've had stuff thrown at me and eye glow and seeing shadows out in the distance on the horizon moving around. But yeah, they sound like a gate swinging, like you described it.
Now, do you have any explanations for that? Because let's say, I know this gets brought up in a few paranormal, like not so much Bigfoot podcasts, but paranormal ones. And they want to say like, okay, maybe it's a portal. Maybe there's something Dogman related. So it kind of comes up sometimes in Bigfoot conversations as well.
My hunch would be that they're mimicking sounds as a diversion, trying to get our attention away from something going on either behind us or off to one side. That's consistent with having stealth thrown at me from behind, that there's something more active. Like it's like they want me to turn around and look at them because there's something out in front of me they don't want me to see. Now, whether it's like a juvenile or something else, but that's my feeling. That's my suspicion. Another
interesting thing that has been mentioned in two different parts of the U.S. recently, Eli Watson talks about it in an Olympic Project doc he just did, where it almost sounds like there's some sort of singing. And then Alton Higgins also says that he heard that in the Area X on their podcast. Is that anything that you've ever heard? Anything where it almost sounds like there's some singing in the background or anything close to that?
Yeah, that would have been the radio effect.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounded like a distant car radio, like there's a song on.
We were conversing beforehand, and you mentioned the Driftless region, which, from what I'm aware, that is northeast Iowa, a lot of the western side of Wisconsin, and a little bit of the southeast corner of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and it goes down into Illinois, like around Dubuque, across the river, and Galena, down that side too. But most of it's in northeast Iowa, southeast Minnesota, and especially in Wisconsin. So
a lot of listeners, and I did this before I moved out here too, you think of the Midwest and Iowa as cornfields and the field of dreams. It's important to know that places like the Driftless region exist. And would you be able to explain why that region is important, especially when it comes to Bigfoot research? Right. So the Driftless region exists because the last round of glaciers missed it. So instead of getting scraped down like western Iowa, it's this area that's kind of lost in time. Steep hills, underfed streams. It's just amazing. It's heavily wooded. It has low population, and it has an abundance of food. You've got deer, you've got all kinds of fishing going on in the trout streams, and
and the cornfields that they still grow in there, is a great place to go if you don't want to be seen. You can follow rivers, you can follow streams through the woods, obviously, and just never be seen by anybody. So you have means of escape. So if you're a bipedal 8-foot tall creature, if you're something like that and you want to move and not be seen, Northeast Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, best place to go.
The reports that come out of the Northeast part of the state are wild. And these are things that I get every once in a while directly to me. I mean, Dubuque County, for sure. All the time, people are bringing up Dubuque County, Little Macocata River. It just sounds like if all these people are legit, like there's a lot of action going on in the Dubuque County area.
Right. I've helped investigate an area just south of the mines of Spain. It was great. We've gone in there a couple of times. The investigation we were doing, it was a father and his kids. And it was kind of late fall. We were standing on the side of a hill. And there's this spot where there's these couple of boulders just, still sitting there. And we're all kind of waiting around seeing what's happened. All of a sudden, we all see this thing swirl. And our first thought was, it was an owl taken off. But it was a branch about 3 feet in size, about like a baseball bat. And whatever threw it had to throw it downward over the top of these boulders, which are about 6 feet tall. Something very tall threw it. It wasn't like a tree branch breaking because it twirled in the air. Like you throw a branch sidearm, same effect. It swirled and landed about 10 feet from us. And there's been other sightings down in there. We've had the flashlight effect on our way out, which is like the eye glow is so strong that it's looking at a base of a tree and you can see it. And it looks like somebody's shining a flashlight at the ground.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great place. And Little Macocata, the whole area up there it's a place that needs to be investigated more thoroughly than it is right now.
Have you ever heard of anything coming out of the Macocata Caves area?
Yeah, I've heard a couple of reports. I'm not sure if they came in through the message board from the BFRO or if they were just stuff that I've picked up on Facebook or other podcasts. But yeah, there's been stuff that's happened in there. And I've always meant to go and spend a weekend down there, but that hasn't quite come to fruition yet.
Gotcha. There's a question that I wanted to make sure that I asked. This is from Scott from the Patreon. Sure. It has to do with when you do investigations. When doing investigations, are there any techniques and cues that help establish the integrity and truthfulness of the witness?
Sure. Face-to-face contact is one. Embellishing a story. So the more they tell it, the more details a person adds to it. Before we even call anybody, that submitted a report, we check out the weather, we check out time of day, the location that they try to give in the report. Sometimes they're very exact, sometimes they're not. Just the veracity of the report, I guess, because we get all kinds. We get reports from people who, I've got a Sasquatch living in my basement. Okay. Thanks for letting us know. All the way up to people who've written like 2 or 3 pages in Word and copied and pasted it into the report. And there's way too much detail for somebody to remember. It reads more like a short story. And then we get the reports like the gentleman out in Oregon with his son, and having talked to him and listened to him tell the story, his body language, how he reacted, how his son, you could see his son visibly become upset. The rate of speech the guy was using as he was telling the story and the more details, when he got into what was happening, it was like his heart was increasing. He was speaking kind of like this, like I am right now, where you just kind of start, stop, and have nerves that whatever happened to them, it shook him up. And then when we go into the location to do a follow-up investigation, is it plausible? I mean, did they see what they saw? Again, based on time of day and the weather conditions and, moon. I hope that answered the question for him.
I'd say that's a really good answer for sure. And a lot of that, I'm like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, because it kind of goes over to when I talk to people for this. You had mentioned that there was a situation where you took a friend to an active location and then something kind of funny happened.
Oh, yeah. So again, that was in Mound State Park. It was about 9:00 at night, and a group of like 3 people and myself, a guy and his girlfriend, another guy and me. We had dinner together, and they just there's no such thing as Bigfoot, and they're just kind of egging me on. Let's go see what happened. Let's go see where you go. All right. So about a 15-minute drive from where we were, and we park on the side of the road, and everybody gets out. Overcast night, a little bit of a chill in the air, damp. It had rained, and I do a high-pitched whoop, and immediately from the woods behind us, the whoop comes back at us, and from right in front of us, whatever it was, mimicked my whoop right back at us again, and they just piled into the car. Well, we got to go. It's like, come on, the show's about to begin. But, they wanted to go, so I had to take them home. But that was fun.
That just, man, that blows my mind. And you hear situations like that over and over. It's like someone wants to get into the situation, and then something happens, and they're like, we got to get out of here. It's like, dude, why did you even and I mean, I get it. I've experienced some weird stuff in Iowa. I haven't let's see. Tree pushed over, wood knocks, but I heard whoops in my tent. I guess nothing that would really scare me yet. I mean, it was all really cool, but
I had it happen with a guy who active military. We were down in Fayette County, and we were walking this dead end road that goes to a bridge, and we get to the spot where there's water that trickles down the side of a hill. And he would stop, and I tell him, this is a spot where stuff usually happens. And he looks at the hill and said, what are all those white lights looking at us? Oh, they're checking us out. He turns around and wants to leave right away. I've seen it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, for some people that is enough, they're out. Have you ever had a situation where you've actually had a visual, or what do you feel that the closest you've been able to come to one would be?
Good question. So when we did an expedition in Iowa I think it was 2014 in Fayette County, we do a big cookout. When we were doing this up by West Union, there's a park that was built by a civilian conservation corps right before World War II. And everybody was in the shelter, and they were eating and having fun. And I was just standing out on the periphery of it, just watching this area down below us. And I saw something very tall, all one color, stride between 2 trees and just stop. And we knew where everybody was at the time. So it wasn't anybody in our group. And it was uniform in color. It was tall and it was thin. And this was mid-April, late April again. To my satisfaction, yeah, I can say I've seen Sasquatch. I've had shadows. I've been with another investigator in Fayette County, standing on a dead end road where the bridge there, and we both have seen something big and white move between a couple of rocks on the river. So I haven't had the classic Patterson Gimlin road crossing. Hi, how you folks doing? I'm just go look away type thing. But I've had, to my satisfaction, I can say I've seen something that I can't identify.
That's really cool, though. Maybe someday I will get to that. We will see. Just need to get more out on the field. Another question that comes up in Iowa Bigfoot circles is, everything good happens east of Des Moines. How do you feel about that?
Well, being from Northeast Iowa.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. I don't, I'm more familiar with the eastern part of the state. I've driven to like Omaha and around there. And I went to school in Mason City. So it's not as heavily wooded. It's flatter. You still have some rolling hills. I wouldn't say that's 100% correct, because as you get closer to Missouri from Des Moines, there's activity down there. So we've had reports of rocks hitting cars. People have been just stopped on the side of the road. And this guy had a windshield cracked by a rock that got flung at him.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't say it's 100% accurate that the good stuff happens east of Des Moines, but definitely if you're in Des Moines and you want to check out stuff, find a county park that's out in the middle of nowhere. Just look for water and look for trees. Google Maps, best friend you can have.
Yeah, and that actually leads to a good question. So, and you may have just answered it. What are your factors you look for? If, let's say, you're in a new area, new state, and all you've got is like you're using your map, what are the main things that you're looking for to find the places?
I look for a few roads. So not like Western Iowa where you have crossroads about every half mile, quarter mile, something like that.
Uh-huh.
So it's not checkerboard like that, but you look for trees, woods. You look for water. And just like, what's a good example of a state forest up in northern Wisconsin, you'd look for areas where it hasn't been heavily clear cut yet, where there's still older trees, 50, 60, 70-year-old trees that haven't been cut down, but there's ponds in it, for example, and not very many people. And for me, that's a good place to start.
Gotcha. Do you ever focus on what the annual amount of rainfall is?
Not exclusively.
Okay. I
look more towards when does spring start coming in? When does winter come in? What are the temperatures? I've had activity, again, at Mound State Park in Wisconsin during heavy drought. It's a constant source of water. So if there's no rain, it's a lot harder to find water. So you find the water and wait for them, they're going to show up.
Sure. Has there ever been a time when you were either like, you know what, this is too intense. If I could get out of here right now, I would. Or have you ever heard of anything reported to you from someone else that was like, wow, if that happened to me, I would be like, I'm out.
Well, I think the guy in Oregon that and his son have the tent stocked, I'm out. Yeah, but personally, Fayette County again. First time I ever went out by myself, and it was a Memorial Day weekend. And I got into the park really late. It was like 11:30 already at night, and I had to park and walk into the same spot where I initially saw Iglo the very first time I ever went out. And made my way down in there. And I thought it was in there for like 2 or 3 hours. And I got a videotape camera going, an old Sony with night vision. And I hear something rustling to my left, and I look over. And whatever it was kind of standing down in a ravine, but it was almost my height. And when I look at the video, yeah, you can kind of make out a face, but you can definitely see the shape of the head and the eyes. And it kind of is swaying back and forth. And sometimes the discretion is the better part of valor. So I got out of there really fast.
Yeah.
And I went back, and when I did watch the tape, I was only in there maybe 20 minutes. But time-wise, when you're standing in kind of like up against a pine tree, time stops.
Right. Yep. You made the right choice probably getting out of there. That sounds pretty interesting.
That was intense. Yeah.
Have you ever had any discussions with DNR officials or the equivalent of such about Bigfoot?
Yes. In Wisconsin, I had a good DNR connection. They would field reports and just put them in their equivalent of the dead letter office, just put them in a drawer. And he would give me some. He'd give me the better ones, or the ones that the DNR themselves had. Specifically, it was up around the Wisconsin Dells several years ago. DNR guy out, he found tracks about 8 feet apart. So something very tall walked through this freshly maintained gravel road, and you can easily see the footprints, he said. Huge stride. I mean, whatever it was very tall. You can't rule out basketball player from the UW coming up to the Dells, but they get reports. They don't follow up on them. They'll just put them away.
How does one go about starting that type of connection? Because that's an incredible thing to have going on.
I met him through his wife. There's a place in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, where we would go, spend the evening. And once he got comfortable enough knowing me, we had other hobbies that we enjoyed. He's a big hockey fan. I love hockey. He teaches snowboarding. I don't snowboard. I just plummet. We would chat. And once he trusted me enough, that's when he started giving reports. So it's like a second hand connection, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
This, for me, seems like it's the best way than just coming up and approaching a DNR officer. Hey, what you got for Bigfoot?
Right. Yeah. That never goes well.
No.
Usually doesn't work, guys. Don't do it. Do you have any Bigfoot stuff on your vehicle?
I have one tiny sticker on the back window. It's there along with the American Needs Farmer sticker, University of Iowa, a twins and a Viking. So yeah, everybody knows I'm certifiable. Nice.
Has having that sticker led to any people coming up to you or anything interesting at that?
I've been waved at. Somebody would pass me and wave.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just going the speed limit and they didn't like it, but they would wave. But people coming up and wanting to talk, no. And I kind of like it that way.
Gotcha.
Have
you ever had anything happen in the Kettle Moraine area of Wisconsin?
We had an expedition in the South Moraine. Apparently I picked a bad weekend because there were some stock car races or tractor pull or something going on that was relatively close. I haven't had anything happen, but the Northern Moraine would be my preference to go to. There's a fire tower. There's a loop that has a fire tower on it. And that is one of the creepiest places I've ever walked. You can go in there midday and there's so much growth in there. It's like you're in at night.
Oof.
And I know an investigator that lived up around there and would go there quite a bit. And he had all kinds of activity. He's had chattering back and forth around him. He's been escorted out numerous times. He says it just gives him a really bad vibe going in there.
Is that Jay Pachochin?
No, it's Rick Rellis.
Oh, yeah. Rick's the guy that told me the story from Backbone.
That would have been our expedition.
Really?
Yes.
Bob, are you holding out on me?
No.
So you were on the expedition for the orbs in the Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Okay, dude. So
they kind of question whether it was orbs, but
okay.
That should be our expedition because we've gone in there a couple of times, and it's a great place again.
So were you there for that incident, or was it a thing where like people were split up and then they told you later about what happened?
I didn't find out about it until the next morning.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
His group, we divide up into groups. It's not like one mass of people that go out. So we'll split into like, usually it's one investigator and about 4 or 5 other people. And we have areas where we want to go. And they had a pretty good activity. They had a good time.
It's such a crazy, and it's a wild story. It's one of the wildest. Rick is a cool guy.
Did he tell you about the zapping that he had?
This is
in Wisconsin.
I don't know. It's been a solid 4 years. It's been a while. It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay. It was on a Wisconsin expedition. It was a family of 4 who've never gone out before, and then another investigator behind the group, and they were walking this road. And it felt like they walked into a wave of electricity. So the first person felt it and like, oh, what's that? And then person behind him, oh my God, as they kept moving.
Ooh.
So it was like they hit a wall.
Is there any other explanation for what that could be?
I lean towards like infrasound. Because there are other mammals that produce it.
Right.
And it seems like the most plausible explanation.
Usually larger predators, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which in that area, would we be looking at like mountain lions or?
There's a couple in that area. I don't think they would produce it. I don't think they're big enough. I think they would just growl and be very annoyed with you. But the feeling that you're walking into a wave of electricity, I've had that happen a couple of times myself. One was up in Yellow River. I'd crawled into the back of my truck for the night, and then this wave hit me. And it was a tingly sensation. If you've ever been shocked, like, plugging in something into an outlet and accidentally having your finger on the tong.
Sure.
It not quite that intense, but it was similar. And I remember to scream at you, yelling, like, stop it, I'm going to bed. And it stopped right away.
Really? Oh, wow. That is interesting. And no health issues?
No long-term effects, but that it was just an annoyance. Something was annoyed that I had parked my truck so close to where they were going to go fishing. It was next to a creek. Actually, not that far from where we filmed Finding Bigfoot. So my feeling is that I just annoyed something, and it was letting me know.
Just realized I'm missing an obvious question. You were not involved with the filming of Finding Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah, I was involved.
You were? Okay.
And I'm in the trailer.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, come on, that's a question to ask. My internal thoughts. Can you share anything from that experience of being involved with that episode?
Sure. If you haven't seen the episode, turn off the last 5 minutes, please. Or you're going to see me on thermal, because what happened, all the good stuff happened when there wasn't a camera crew around. So there's a fire tower up in Yellow River, and there was a group of us hanging out there, and I had something chucked at me like a walnut, just come flying past my head. Just missed me. You hear the whiz from it and hear it land right behind me. So that happened. There was a couple of investigators walking the fire tower road, and something landed at their feet, and an investigator picked up a rock and threw it back in the direction where the stuff came. Not a good idea. You get stuff thrown at you constantly then. So they irritated something. But that last night it was interesting. It was a good idea, a good plan of having us all positioned around on this road. And Matt Moneymaker and Cliff were walking along the edge of a creek. And I'm trying to get their attention because on the other side of the creek, right behind them, something with red eyes was moving back and forth. Their walkie-talkies weren't on. And obviously they couldn't see me because it's pitch black.
Right.
So I'm trying to run up to them and get their attention. So that's why I'm on TV in thermal. And afterwards, we started questioning the crew because it's not a huge crew. It's 10, 15 people that came with them. And none of them were in that area where we were seeing the eye glow. They were all at the designated parking area. So something was pacing behind him on the other side of the creek. But as the show goes, that was a fair representation of a BFRO expedition. You know, again, we divided up into groups and we had a big cookout when it started, and it was a lot of fun, except for like the very end.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it becomes an interesting episode for sure. People don't know the Iowa episode, you should go watch it. I think it's like on Discovery Plus. Are there any things that you would want to clear up about what people might think about?
It's definitely not a way to make money. I know we charge, but we've got overhead. We pay insurance. There's the upkeep of the database and the website. So you're not going to get rich holding an expedition. There's, we try to keep it as scientific as possible. There's no joking, no firearms, no pranking. We don't want people to disclose where we're going. Afterwards, we encourage people to go back out into the site. That would be my main concern. People that I hear on different websites that, it's just a way to make money. And no, I spend way more than anything I ever get from it.
Gotcha. The thing I hear over and over, and I haven't been on one myself, so I'm kind of an outside person looking in, but the thing I see over and over is that everything is faked that happens on those.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Okay. That's what I figured. I was like, I don't know, guys.
At the very least, renting the Jack Link's costume, that thing's really expensive.
Right. Yeah. You'd have to really raise the price.
Yes. No, there's no faking. We don't plant evidence and, oh, hey guys, let's go over here. No.
Gotcha. Oh, that's good to hear. Have you ever captured any interesting audio evidence yourself personally?
I've been doing this since 2012. So after 11 years, last year up in Minnesota, I caught something which most likely is a howl. It doesn't match up with any known critters. It's not coyote. It doesn't match that wave, that sonogram. It doesn't match, wolf or bear. It just the spectrogram. It looks like something very large, very big, very deep chest did a whoop. You can see it go up, comes down, and at the very end, it goes back up again, sort of like the Ohio howl.
Gotcha. That is really cool. That's awesome. What are your, being up in Wisconsin, do you have any feelings towards non-Bigfoot cryptids?
Everybody talks about the dog man,
right?
The Beast of Bray Road. And coincidentally enough, in the town I live in, there's a Bray Street a block from me. Nice. It's like 1 block long. And there's a beast that lives on it. It's a heck of a dog. You go out for a walk, it's going to say hi to you. I haven't encountered any other cryptids. I enjoy the stories. One of my best friends wants to borrow my recording equipment and go sit in cemeteries.
Oh my goodness.
knock yourself out.
Yeah, not for me, dude. Yeah, the whole dogman thing freaks me out. I'm like, I've gotten a few reports from Iowa, but I'm like, man, I hope we don't have any of those down here. But I know there was a guy who contacted me in Northwest Iowa. I'm sure everything weird is over in Southeast Iowa, so I'm sure there's something over there. Do you have any advice for people that would be wanting to kind of get into the going to look for Bigfoot thing? Any advice for people just starting out?
Sure. There's a great book by Robert W. Morris.
Oh, the Robert W. Morgan one?
Yeah,
I have that one.
Book.
It's so good.
That's a great book.
It really is.
Unfortunately, we were packing up to move, and that book got packed up, and I don't happen to remember the name of it right now, but it's fantastic. It tells you how to do this. It tells you how to set up a tent, how to select a campsite. The best advice in the book: act natural and be quiet. Whether you're at the campsite or you go out in the woods, just be yourself. Don't blare music really loud. Don't do anything dumb like that. There's a lot of great organizations that you can hook up with, or at least investigate yourself and check them out. Besides the BFRO, there's the Lowland Investigators, which is in Iowa. I happen to think they're great because I work with them.
Right. I think that's the only non-BFRO related organization for Bigfoot, right? Is Lowlands. That's all I could find.
There should be other ones in Iowa.
Okay.
I don't know how active they are. There's other organizations in the Midwest that should be active. But again, if you want to do this, spend some time studying the subject and find it. If you're comfortable walking at night, do it without your headlamp on. You should get used to being able to see in the dark after a few minutes. Your eyes will adjust. And just walk a dead end road. Again, eyes open, mouth closed, and just listen, see what's around you.
Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely, I would say stick to the roads for at the beginning.
Yeah, I've seen people dive into 6 foot tall brush thinking they saw. I glow, it's Bigfoot. And they run into this cover. And, for God's sake, they were chasing the moon.
Oh, man. Yeah, sure.
So again, there's another piece of advice. When you go out, make sure you know where cell phone towers are. If you're going to a spot, headlamps from car headlights, tail lights, just check it out and make sure that you know your surroundings before you commit to going out for 3 or 4 hours at a time.
Yeah, this is not a thing where it's like you decide to do it at 9 and you go out at 10. Like you need to put time into preparing for this and know Are there snakes in the area I'm going to? Maybe I need to be prepared for if a snake is there, like a poisonous snake. That's kind of a big deal in Iowa in some parts. Yeah, definitely do your homework. And if you have a buddy, that helps out too. But yeah, that's my advice to tag on anyways. But yeah. Bob, this has been a really fun chat. There are a few things I want to ask you afterwards, if you have a few extra minutes. But I just really thankful for you for coming on the show and just sharing some really solid information about the Midwest in Iowa when it comes to Bigfoot. There's not a lot of people to talk to, and I just appreciate you coming on. Are there any ways that people do you have an online presence at all, or ways people can contact you, or are you kind of in the shadows and like to live that way?
I lurk in the darkness.
Perfect.
Lowlanders, that website, you can contact me through there. If you have a report, you can put it on the BFRO website for Iowa and request me to be the investigator. That's the best way to do it too. Those two.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Bob.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a blast.
Just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Bob's encounters are the kind that stay with you, not just because of what he saw, but because of what watched him back from the woods So huge thanks to Bob Barhite for sharing his stories from Iowa, Wisconsin, and beyond, and reminding us that some parts of the Midwest are still wild in ways we can't explain. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, Iowa, or just loves a good mystery about what's out there. So if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show there. And if you leave a positive 5-star review, it really helps more folks discover these accounts. If you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in the Driftless area or around places like Yellow River, Mound State Park, or Fayette County, I would love to hear about it. So please email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, trust your gut, stay curious, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.